This is Ken Baroff, formerly of Impel Marketing, Skybox, Fleer Skybox, and you are listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast.
Hello everybody, my name is Ian Taylor and welcome to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, brought to you by the Marvel Cards Fan Collective, an awesome community of card collectors and creators. You can find our two groups on Facebook, details of which are at the end of this podcast, so come check us out. With me is my co-pilot in all things Marvel cards. He was last seen muttering about Skybox becoming self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, August 29th, 1997, and unleashing the card apocalypse on humanity. It's Norrin Rad.
Hey, everybody. Still don't know how I found myself out of those woods, though.
No.
Very dark time in my life.
It was. We'll not dwell. This is a podcast, not therapy, dear.
That's right. That's right.
But interestingly, before I go into why I mangled the word Skybox to Skynet while I was doing that rather convoluted intro, did you know we are now past the point in time that they sent...
my father to see me.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. That point in time passed a few years ago.
Yeah.
So we are now further ahead than Terminator's Future, where they sent back Kyle Reese.
Or that time I went back and hit on my mom. That was super weird. But I remember being back now. That's good.
We won't talk about that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the reason it's falling apart already. Stick with us, Ken. The reason I was talking about Skybox. Oh dear. We really do need to script these better. The reason I was talking about Skybox is we have a guest today, and I'm really excited because today's guest and I have been going back and forth, I guess, for a couple of months now. What with everything going on in the world and schedules and just memories, I think it's taken us a little bit of time to hook this up. So without further ado, we're joined by Ken Baroff, who used to work back in the day at Skybox. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, more than welcome.
Of course.
More than welcome. Pleasure is ours. I kind of found you by partly by stalking your LinkedIn profile. So if you keep getting pings that I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, that's probably a little bit creepy, and you can put a cease and desist.
It's weird for sure.
Gosh,
Sorry. But I noticed, and for the life of me, I can't find it now because I did screen cap it. So your job title, and I wanted to ask this for the longest time, and here we are, was SBU Director Entertainment at Fleer Skybox from 91 to 96. What does SBU stand for?
What does that mean? Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Go on, hit us up.
So there's actually a whole story behind that. But so when we all started in the early 90s, we were all marketing managers. And there was this guy who was actually, I think he ended up doing the DC cards. I won't name names to protect the innocent. And he was really on this deal where he wanted us to be named business unit directors because he was, so we're getting there, right? You got the B and the U. Mm-hmm. And so we settled in on this deal, and I didn't care. I was like in my 20s and I didn't, whatever. And they are strategic business units. So an SBU, not SVU. Yeah, just strategic business unit director. And I got this cool title, and I forgot that that's the way I put it on LinkedIn, and who the hell would know what that means?
No, I really tactical gear or something.
What? Yeah, no, it was. It's
a cool title, though.
The things we call ourselves, right?
Oh, the labels we give ourselves for our security. Yes.
I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm a strategic business unit director. It just seemed too long.
It sounds like you're the leader of a squadron.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Like a platoon. Yeah.
Yeah, it is cool, and I suppose in a sense I was at the time, but who knew?
Well, we funny enough, I've got two job titles at the moment in my current role, depending on which client I'm talking to. But we'll not go into that. So I found, so before we go into kind of all the juicy stories and tales I'm sure you've got in that brain of yours. I found you because in the groups that I started on Facebook, we're lucky enough to have Joe Gisco. And he often posts and contributes, and he's really generous with his time to do that. And a lot of the collectors really kind of dig that interaction with him, and a lot of the other artists like Simone Bianchi's there, and Dave DeVries and people like that. Julie's there, and he I'm also friends with him on Facebook, and Joe often says when he posts that he's got loads of friends, but he's just accepted over the years. So I saw a post of his, and it was, and at this point I'm going to share my screen because I think this would be quite fun for you to, if I can figure out how to share my screen.
Fun as described by, this could be a cringy memory.
This could be a cringy memory. It's
well, God knows what there could be.
I don't know if it's cringy. No, it's not too bad. I'm not about to ambush you. So basically, Joe posted, and I have asked his permission. If we won't post this up on the tasting notes unless Joe gives us permission. So we'll just talk about it for now. So if he doesn't give us permission, then listeners will have to just use their imagination. Yeah, exactly. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. So I'm waiting for my screen to catch up. So can you see what I've just put up on screen?
I can see it, and I remember it distinctly. That is Comic-Con. So
that is so it's a post where from 1992 San Diego Comic-Con with project editor Bob Budiansky, that's a great name, and Skybox's Ken Baroff, which is you, presenting me, Joe, with a commemorative Marvel watch, which I still have as a thank you for my work on the very first Marvel Masterpieces set, and probably not dying while trying to meet the incredibly tight deadline. And what I love about this photo, as well as it being portrait of the artist as a younger man in more than one case, is that wonderful T-shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
With
my hero
from Masterpieces 92. I mean, I'm guessing you remember all this happening and how crazy a promotional.
So check this out. I can tell you several things about that picture.
Yes.
So I don't have the exact same picture, but I have a similar one. I wish I brought it. Or I'm standing next to Joe when it was probably minutes before, where he's signing a bazillion of the cards as people are coming through, and I'm standing there like I was like his protector. He's Joe, the nice guy. He is the nicest guy in the world. Yeah. And I had to be sort of the jerk to like cut the line off and let him use the bathroom, and or say to people, okay, he's been here for 2 hours, we need a break. So I was like the schmuck, the sergeant at arms. Now Joe, as I hope you probably know, was a cop in New York.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So he's like this 800-pound gorilla. He's the nice guy. I'm all of 5'6" and 140 pounds soaking wet. I'm his sergeant at arms. So that was funny. But that shirt. So one of the things we used to do at Impel early on, because we didn't know how the card stuff was going to go. Right. We had a product that we got permission from the licensors, to do card shirts. So early on, so for Marvel Universe 1, 2, 3, it was probably, like 90 through 92, we had this card shirt series. So I was actually hawking product there because you could send in a, I don't remember, like it was a check and pick your favorite card, and we would make it into a card shirt for you.
What? Yeah. That's amazing.
So help me God. And that's probably the only card shirt. I probably had some other ones, but that one I remember. So my son, who is now 30 years old, or he's going to be 30 in a couple of days.
Happy birthday, Ken's son. Yes.
He still has that shirt. His name's Daniel. He still has that tattered old card shirt with Wolverine on it. And the image It's not that crisp and beautiful anymore, but that shirt still exists 30 years later.
What?
28 years later. Yep.
I know everyone's going to be asking that question too. It's like, okay, so does he have any more shirts left? Okay.
Yeah, that was it wasn't one of a kind, but that was isn't that cool? Yeah.
That is really cool. I've never seen it before. had no idea that was even done
Card
at
shirts.
all. That's really cool. And I love that you could pick which card you would want too, which is wow. See, that's the way to do it, man. That's awesome.
This reminds me of the few episodes back, Noreen. We did we were looking at all those promo cards.
Yes.
And we had this X-Force one. I don't know. Let me just stop sharing my screen so that we can. There we go.
There you guys are.
Marvelous. Let me get that off my screen. There we go. So we had this, and this is an Impel one. So this is an X-Force one.
Yes, that's right.
And we were talking about this one because we were, and you could choose one of those designs.
See?
And have that come to you.
Because that was, we put those in the card pack so that people could buy. But by masterpieces, I'm 99%. Now you're going to, I want to fact check myself on this, but I think masterpieces, you could get any one of the 100 cards.
Wow.
It's super cool.
I actually never knew you could. So this is news.
Neither could I. I had no idea. Yeah.
I'm not saying you can now. I'm sure you couldn't.
Oh, okay. So what are we doing here then?
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
What is this? This was all about that shirt. Okay.
I've sent loads of those in. I never get anything back. My checks are getting cashed. I've no idea what's going on.
No idea what's going on.
So let's back up a bit just to touch because you mentioned Impel, and my understanding, because I'd look around, obviously a lot of this stuff happened pre-internet, so the amount of information there is, and certainly the amount of pictures there is pretty much based on anyone who's written a blog post, a Wikipedia entry, which is slim, but not based on an awful lot of verifiable sources, and scanned in press releases. And I've got a couple that I really like, and we'll come on to. But my understanding is that it was Impel, then it became Skybox. So you were there when it was Impel?
Yes. Well, I was there for the conversion, and I can explain how and why that happened, it's a kind of an interesting history.
Yeah.
You want to know about the golden age of trading cards?
Yes, sir.
And who the heck knew that we were headed into that? But there's a tobacco company down here in Durham, North Carolina, Liggett and Myers Tobacco, as a hedge against the fact that cigarettes at that time were, they're with health and wellness and all the obvious things. And if you guys are smokers or anybody out there who's going to be listening or smokers, it's not to be insulting, but there was a lot in the late 80s as far as a health kick and salad bars and all this stuff. So anyway, Impel Liggett and Myers, in trying to read the tea leaves, wanted to get in the card business because they had this incredible distribution system for cigarettes. And they basically thought, hey, if we give the sales guys who are out and have these connections throughout all these different industries another product to sell, right, then if cigarettes take a dip, we'll have something else. And what they wanted was baseball cards. But they couldn't get a baseball card license. This is really inside baseball, I'm telling you here. So got that? See what I did there? But because they couldn't get a baseball card license, they were looking at other sports leagues initially. And the first sports league that signed on was the NBA, basketball. And this comes up again, so pay attention.
Okay.
So basketball, which was, I think it was 89 or 90, and there was an inaugural set of cards called Skybox trading cards. So that's where the Skybox came from, because you're sitting in the Skybox at the idea was the brand. Got it? Brand was best seats in the house.
Wow.
So Skybox trading cards. That was the initial name for the basketball series. Then once Impel got the basketball license. Well, Liggett and Myers spun out a company from the tobacco company, Impel Marketing, which was a cards-only company, cards and collectibles. Right. So all these collectibles. And because the NBA was in New York, they started looking at other licenses. This was late 80s. And one of the ones that was coming up for renewal was Marvel. Okay.
Gotcha.
Wow. So, people know people, you know how that works. So the NBA was up there, the NHL was up there, and all this was kind of a way to get to Major League Baseball ultimately, and it gets more convoluted and complicated. But the point is, at that time, Marvel was doing X-Men cards through Comic Images, and Marvel did some of their own cards, like X-Force, I think, was something that Marvel did themselves. And Impel Marketing got the Marvel Universe license, and that's where the Marvel trading cards came from.
Wow.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Perfectly. Yeah.
So
perfectly.
and then a couple years later, we had a new CEO who came in, who was a great intuitive guy, came from Reebok. Frank O'Connell was his name. And Frank was like, hey, this name Impel really sucks. And he had this idea, and he's just an idea. And he came in and he's like, Skybox, best seats in the house, Skybox, best cards. We should name it Skybox. And we're all like, those of us who were doing the non-sport stuff, which was basically me at that point, we're like, wow, that's idiotic. I mean, Skybox, this was a big lesson for me in marketing, which is you name it, you own it, you support it, and people go, yeah. And Impel disappeared as fast and then Skybox just became the thing. Isn't that weird?
Wow.
That's how it happened.
That makes total sense now.
I thought it was so dumb. Initially, I'm like, why are you naming the company after our one line of bats? Because we had two brands. We had the Skybox cards, which are our best NBA cards, and then we had NBA Hoops cards, which were the basic cards.
Right.
So you're taking this brand but actually looking back on it, it was really smart.
Wow.
It's like it's irrelevant to non-sport collectors. They're not going to know what Skybox means. And he's like, what difference does it make? Who cares? We could call it Spot the Red Dog. I mean, who cares?
It's true, because the identity comes from the brand afterwards, right? So yeah, which is crazy to me, because I'm not a sports guy at all, and I'm 6'4", but I've never been a sports guy, and I had no idea what Skybox meant. But as a kid, I remember looking at the cards and being like, that's a cool name, because Impel, I would have no idea. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that I have to say that's cool about this, before we, get into where the bodies are buried and stuff, is
good. I'm glad you said it, but I wanted to make sure we were getting
we gotta lay it out there. So, in doing the research for this, now keep in mind, I was involved in this from 1991 to 1996. And then I actually went into nonprofit work. So this is like another life for me. Yeah. And in my conversations with Ian, I start going back and looking, and Ian's aware of this. But one of the things that came up is my wife's like, oh, you totally got to do this, and you're going to get all that stuff out of your secret little closet, and we're going to go through it, and you're going to relive your memories, but we're going to clean this up. We're gonna do some cleanup work here, and you have your memories, and you do the podcast, and that's all good. So you guys have done a huge favor, and my wife thanks you. But part of my research in all of this, because I had to go back and research, is what you guys were talking about, which is there's so much content out there, thanks to electronic media, and the thing that's so cool about this is, I listen to some of your podcasts, which was great. And then I'm finding all these videos. Like if you just search Marvel trading cards, there's like guys out there who like do an episode where they're just opening packs of cards. I'm like, is this interesting to people?
Box breaks.
It is. Totally. People love it. We do it on our group site all the time. Yeah.
And Norrin, to your point, how many people were like, I'm really into this now because I was a kid during this period where I was doing what I was doing, and I'm in my 20s, and we could have only hoped that we were doing stuff that people would find really cool. And the fact that 30 years later, like, people are trying to reconstruct the history of what happened is like beyond my imagination. It's so cool. So cool.
I mean, to be honest with you, you're one of the guys. I mean, you were in it, right? The time period that we all started collecting from is the 90 to 96, especially. I mean, I was born in 85. So I was right at the right age seeing these in like mall vending, like mall shops or whatever, or card shops, you know. That was my interaction with them. And now I'm a collector of them. And it's what we all do, right? You are the gatekeeper to a lot of the good secrets, sir.
Yeah. And I love to hear, you know, like there's a lot of people who are like, Marvel Masterpieces 92, it doesn't get better than this. And I tend to agree with them. You know, I think Marvel did some really good stuff. When the Marvel license went over to Fleer, there's some really interesting stuff. But that particular period of time, starting with, you know, Marvel Universe Series 1 in 90, which was a really interesting set, through those first few Marvel Universe sets, the first 3, I think. Yeah. Then the X-Men sets with Jim Lee, the first Masterpieces. It's like, man, we set the table in a beautiful way.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. You are responsible for setting the standard, right? Yeah. And that standard has always been, it's not that it's never exceeded, because a lot of cool things have been done, but it's always the thing we hold as the iconic moment. Yeah. Right? That's the standard in which we always look at these cards. 100%. Yep. Wow. Yep.
Wow. I don't have the official binder from 1990, but I do have a good swathe of these wonderful card.
Things are happening.
My goodness.
You're looking at happening.
Oh my gosh.
So there they
are. Beautiful. Look at that.
Okay, Ken.
So for those listening, Ken is holding up the hologram cover. Does that say collector's album on the front? It does.
Yes, it does. Baby. Marvel Universe official.
Marvel Universe 1990, and it's just a beautiful. Oh, stop it!
Damn it!
Now, Noin, did you recently acquire a piece of original artwork from that set?
Okay, you ready for this? Okay, give me.
Am I allowed to talk about this? I'll carry on talking to Ken while you go.
You know what? For sure. Ken, I am willing to reveal this to you, my friend. Okay, because we're in a safe space. So 2 seconds.
Yeah, he's off to get something. We also.
I love this. We're just going to be like, I have the coolest thing. No, I have the coolest thing.
No. He's also got, because we talked about this on a previous episode. He tracked down one of the original printing plates or shims, I think they're called, from the hologram.
Yeah.
From the making of holograms from that series. So he owns that as well.
Okay, I have some cool stuff to show you.
Oh my goodness.
Remember, back in those days, we had the presence. Oh, here comes something. We had the presence of mind. I'll wait till he's back on. There you are. But we had the presence of mind at the time to treat ourselves like, I have like original press proofs where we were like approving, where we signed off on the color on the press sheet. They're so super cool.
You live actually very close to me, so we will be talking soon.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay. Social distance while I drool.
Yeah.
You're going to get that restraining order sorted out.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I'll give you my full name after the show so you can do all the paperwork. Good. I don't want to trouble you.
Yeah, no. You'll be hearing from my lawyer for sure. Yeah. What's coming up here, Norrin?
All right. So this is the original artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let me go ahead and take off that.
Take your blur background.
Yeah, of the hologram, right.
That's the Silver Surfer hologram. Oh, yeah.
This is it. So this took a long time to get. I got it from a pretty big Silver Surfer collector who was nice enough to let it go to me. But here's the original art for the cards you worked on.
Yeah. Swell.
I know. I was very, very lucky to get this, but a little blast from the past for sure.
Yeah. So, that's super cool. So my son, Daniel, who is he also lives close to me. Interestingly, so this was all happening when he was born in 90, but towards the end of the 90s, I had all this stuff, and I had all these, zillions of comic books with the backer boards. I'd done all the right stuff. And he was like probably 7 or 8. He's going to get really pissed off when he listens to this. But this is irony of ironies, right? So I've got all this stuff that I had collected, all this card stuff, all the comic book stuff, because Marvel and DC and everybody was sending me source material for ideas. And so I had all this cool stuff. And I said to Dan, because my wife was going berserk because I was filling our basement with all this stuff, in the long boxes and all that stuff, and doing it just the right way, sticking it under the basement stairs. And she's like, okay, enough. Yeah, well, you're gonna start to understand my struggle now. So I think it was around 97 or 98. We had close to a flood in our basement. It didn't ruin anything, but we had some water in our basement. My wife said, stuff's going to get ruined. We got to move some of this stuff out. There's too much here. So you have to make a strategic decision now. We can get rid of all the stuff. We can get rid of some of the stuff. We can get rid of, so I tried to prevail upon my poor 7 or 8 year old son. I said, look, man, got these comic books, got this stuff. You gotta back me up here. He could not have been less interested in any of it. So what ended up happening, this was a negotiation. I said, I can let the comic books go because I'm not really a comic book collector. The card stuff is part of my life. It's in my DNA. I have to, well, you just saw. So I won that battle. She's like, fine, get rid of the comic books. So 2 minivan loads of comic books went to a local comic store.
Wow.
2 minivans full of long boxes. Went to a comic store, and they put them on consignment or whatever. Yeah, I don't even remember what happened. And then 3 years later, my son's about 11 years old and starts collecting comic books. And went to college and worked at a comic store. And he's been a collector. And he's like, didn't we have, like the whole Death of Superman series? I'm like, yes. Didn't you have Marvel comic books from the 60s? Yes. And I asked you if you wanted any. So it's one of those, Grandma threw away my baseball cards. This is one of those with the comic books. And yet to this day, well, he finds it interesting that he became very much into the comics and that stuff. The cards, he just never got as much into the card stuff. He thinks it's really interesting, but he has several of my treasured possessions, and the Silver Surfer is what made me think of it. I had, it was given to me as a gift from a colorist. One of the original cells from, I think it was Marvel Universe Series 2 of Kang, with the original acetate and the color. And framed it. He was like, because he was really into comics, and he's like, could I have this? I'm like, yeah, sure, you can have it. And now I wish I had it. So he's got it. But he appreciates it, totally.
That's so cool.
Isn't it cool? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
My favorite part about that story is you had to bargain with okay, listen, your mom's got me in a corner here, man. I need you to back me up.
And he did it. He left me
high and dry.
Yeah.
Swinging in the wind. Yeah.
Unlike the comics in the flooded basement.
That's great. Oh,
yes.
Fun.
Nothing was damaged, thankfully.
Viewers,
my heart,
all the listeners.
So there you go.
So your input. So you reeled off a load of sets there. So talk to me about because we'll come on to Marvel Universe, because Marvel Universe is actually, no, we'll stay on Marvel Universe for the moment, because I have here, and I regularly bring this up because I can't bring myself to open it. I have here an unopened box of Marvel Universe Series 3. That's Series 3, and that. So I kind of didn't, because I'm older than Norrin. So by the time cards came out, and also I'm in England, so we didn't get the same distribution as you guys did in America. So these came in through Oh, stop it. Right. Marvel Universe 3 Collector's Album.
You are my new favorite person.
Cool.
That's the set I started on. That's the set I started on.
That's the thing. And this is the one I started on, but I couldn't afford to buy them. I just was able to watch people busting these in the comic shop near where I grew up. And it wasn't until years later that I finally got this, and I'm about to open it and hopefully make my set. So,
wow.
But it's
can I tell you what bothers me about this set? Isn't it? It's a gorgeous.
It is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, right? So because I have it in the album and in my 9-up sheets here, you can see. So this is the end of the superheroes, which went through 70 cards. 70 cards is not divisible by 9.
See, Ken gets it.
You following me?
Yes.
Yeah, we're with you.
This drove me crazy because then at the bottom of the page here, that's where team-ups start.
See?
And the rest of the series is thrown off. So there was this constant battle that I was being told by our production people, you can't print the cards, you can't do it. We can't randomize the cards because you have to plan the randomness. Otherwise, like they have to lay out the press sheet in a certain way. And I've got more treats for you in a minute. But the thing that's was really annoying to me is I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't believe that. There has to be a way that we can make the categories divisible by 9 because people collect in the 9-up, and Norrin understands exactly what I'm talking about.
Hell yes.
I'm with you. We've been saying this since episode 1.
We complain about this all the time. I just want everyone to know Ken is officially a superhero of cards because he is responsible for getting this sorted out. Okay?
Until it was not sorted out, but Rittenhouse stuck to it.
Rittenhouse stuck to it. Yeah, they understood.
Coming up to another one.
Oh my God.
Where we finally got it right. But Norrin, Ian, ask your question.
No. I was just saying so I don't know how much you've kept in touch with what's happened in the world of cards because obviously you left it and you mentioned you were a non-profit, but the company that had the license through 2005, I want to say, through to a little bit of shared ownership with Upper Deck, and then it went to Upper Deck solely in I think 2014, 15.
I think that's right, 2014.
Yeah. I think Rittenhouse Archives had it for 10 years, give and take, and they religiously stuck to the 9-card format, and they produced a binder with each set.
Yes.
And with the binder, you would get a single 9-card page, and in the middle of that 9-card page was a promo card that you would only get with that binder.
See, that's fantastic.
So they really understood it. They got it completely. Now, the guy who runs Rittenhouse Archives, I've seen pop up in some of the stuff that's come up when I was looking at Skybox history, and he might have been after your time, actually. I think it was more the Fleer days. Is Steve Charandoff?
Oh, yeah.
So that may be why that's carried through. But there was a real love, not that Upper Deck don't treat them with love, but there was a real love and affection for the collective mentality that went through that whole period.
So Steve and I overlapped at Fleer. And Steve knew what he was doing. He was very interested in designing from the collector backwards rather than. Now, keep in mind, this was after all the norms had been set. I'm not saying, I appreciate that he did that. I like the fact that he took it to the next level. But those arguments were being had. This was at a time where we're just producing cards, putting them on sheets, doing all this kind of stuff, and trying to get to a number, like a number in the category, total number of cards. So when I started this whole thing about laying them in, I'm going to show you something. Now, this is where the case was made. So this is the X-Men series, Jim Lee X-Men. 1992. So another beautiful album here. But I actually made the case with the set you're looking at right now to our production people. And here's how I did it. So you notice with the Marvel Universe Series 3, they just went right in order.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I collected these the way a collector would. And please tell me one of you did this. But this is the end of the superheroes. And you'll notice it's a partial page.
Yeah.
And I said to a collector, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it the right way, so why would, you end up with a page with 4 cards on it. Then you start your supervillains, and the supervillains go along, which is all good. And the supervillains end up with a little. It's like leaving an orphan. When you write a paragraph, you have one word at the bottom. You have to be obsessive compulsive to understand this, but collectors feel me on this.
Oh, awesome.
So this is universal in the hobby.
But look at the teams. Look at how ridiculous that is. So there were 10 teams.
Just to have that one page with one card? No way.
Precisely. And then the X-Men, there's only 5 of them. So anyway, but the one thing that I was able to win, the battle that I won on this card today, I said, all right, shut up. We'll do this. Is the Danger Room was a 9-up sheet.
Nice. Wait a minute. Yeah. You're telling me the Danger Room scene, the iconic Jim Lee Danger Room scene, was the point to show the 9-card 9-up that you proposed?
Yeah. And I'm going to show you something else.
Okay, Ken went from being a superhero to being a god. I just want that to be out there.
We weren't able, to the obsessive compulsive, I guess. So we weren't able, and look at this. I don't even remember that. So these are the 5 things, but they're signed by Jim himself. Look at that. They were all signed by Jim. See, so yeah, he was super cool. But if you look,
so Ken, you lived where again? Because I'm just going to get in my car. Let's do this interview in person. Let's just hang out, you and I.
Boundaries. So no. Here's the thing. Yeah.
Oh, stop it.
So look, I'm showing them a press sheet, but if you'll notice the Danger Room on the press sheet. And the reason why is because when they would print the cards and then put the cards in the sorter, if you put them all in the same place, they couldn't get the randomness that, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this was our negotiation. What I was trying to get them to do was create, actually on the press sheet, to have a 9-up. But it gets better, Norrin. It's going to gets really good here. So, So moving on to X-Men Series 2, guess what?
We've lost Norrin.
I'm so sorry. Why am I still unprofessional? Oh my God.
This is so cool, though. That's all right. You're among friends here. So here they finally said, all right, Mr. Obsessive Compulsive, and these are beautiful. This was such a nice set. But if you notice now, everything works, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And, even though this is the Magneto series with the arch enemies,
but that looks so much better, though.
Isn't that wicked cool? And they all do that. Mr. Sinister.
I remember. Wow.
Yeah, totally. And then you finish the super teams, and what starts on the next page? Your
villains,
super
baby.
villains. And there it is. So it goes on through, and I was happy, and this is somewhere in here. I think we had 30. Yeah, the 30 years of X-Men. But everything is divisible by 9 in the series, and I was happy. And I gave Steve Chernoff what he needed to do what he needed to do. But no, but Steve always understood that. He did. He understood for the hobbyist. It's so fulfilling. If you're gonna collect in this, you're gonna collect by 9s, make the freaking thing divisible by 9. And it took me 2 years to get there.
Wow.
Well, that is an amazing.
I feel better having had that conversation.
You should feel very.
No, you should,
sir.
and you should. Seriously. I mean, that is. I can't even begin to take. I have enormous issues with some of the modern set. I say some, not all. The ones that have top 10 subsets in. Yes. Top 10 subsets just drive me absolutely potty.
Why would yes?
I've got a bit of an issue with Masterpieces, both 2016 and 18 go to 100 cards, not 99. They go to 100 cards, and it's not as if the 100th is a checklist. I'm not saying that the art on the 100th card is not worthy in any way, shape, size, or form, but it properly twists my melon, and it just doesn't work. I tell you, the set that did work and that did honour that kind of collector first kind of mentality, which is why I love it. See, where I properly got back into cards. Yeah. After years of low wages and then chasing girls, was when I started to settle down. Was you hear me? Was Marvel Masterpieces 2007, which was when I came into the hobby like full on, and then I went back and got a lot of these older sets, and they did that with an awful lot of love. And respect for the original, because it was the 15th anniversary of '92, and Joe came back and did the box art for it.
That's right.
A header card for it. And it was it wasn't original art, but it was a beautifully made set, and they used art from some extraordinary people, but they designed it in a way that you had a page with. In fact, I'll show you. I've got it here, because you may not have seen this, but given that you were kind of had moved
2007, on. I can guarantee you I did.
Yeah. So, for example, Marvel Masterpieces did this wonderful thing where they did like. My camera is terrible, so forgive me if you can't.
No, I see it.
So you'll see that there's an image. That top one is Drew Struzan. That middle one is Alex Ross.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And that bottom one is Art Adams. So they did it like that. So they went across, and then they did per box and box toppers variants of them, where they did the Alex Ross images are black and white.
Yeah.
And then this one was ridiculously hard to complete. I do actually have the final card. I've just not put it in yet. That was only available. That was my Grail card for the longest time. I got that about 3-4 months ago now. That's the Art Adams one, but it's black and white, and you only got one of those per case. That was a case topper. And it came in a little cellophane wrap on top of the case. Wow. And that was so difficult to get that triple card.
Well, that's the actual preliminary art. That's like the actual sketch version.
That's gorgeous. So, quick question. What occurred to me when you were showing me these, that the doing things in threes, pieces of artwork in three. So has the term triptych?
Yes.
That exists,
that's
right?
what I call those. Yeah. I always fumble the pronunciation of it.
So So I was, what popped back into my mind, and Norrin saw this before, so I'm going to put this back up. So this to me was a total triumph, because this is the X-Men Series 2 press sheet. Well, there were doubles. So it was 2, 2, 2, but there's nothing on this press sheet. It ends with the checklist. It's the idea was, the vision was to do a press sheet that was a complete piece of art. So the triptychs are at the top, right? The doubles are down the middle. The film thing is a complete, you see that? The cellular.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So this was, the press sheet itself was a complete design, not just, whereas I showed you X-Men Series 1 where the Danger Room was split up. Yeah. What I had wanted originally was, let's put the Danger Room dead center and build the press sheet around it.
Yes.
Yeah, but then the press sheet is a complete piece of art. Then the 9-up sheets are a complete piece of art. That was the concept. It took us a while to get there, just because technologically
that has to be difficult to
they were inventing, they had machines that did this for baseball cards, not for non-sport art and all that kind of stuff.
The press sheet wasn't meant to look like one piece of art, right? No. And it's crazy too, because now, and again, just so now what they do is they put cards into these boxes. Like when Josko returned to the Marvel Masterpiece 2016, they put these cards in there that were called redemption cards, and you can get one of those uncut sheets as a redemption. Like the collector could get one. So now they really are not only going from the printing floor to the offices of Skybox, Upper Deck, and all the stuff. But now, since they are going into collectors' hands, having those uncut sheets as one piece of art is genius. You know what I mean? That should always have been, that should really become the norm.
That was Yeah, and that was the gold standard. And quite frankly, initially there were a lot of people in the story, like Alan Gordon, who was the vice president of licensing for Marvel Entertainment Group. If you haven't heard the name, you should know him. He came from Comic Images. Alan was brilliant. Alan was the mind behind, let's use the trading cards to bring people into the comic world, because young kiddos, it's a way to introduce younger kids to a hobby that's going to introduce them to the characters. So he was right at the forefront of that, and he was thinking that way. Bob Budiansky. So that's how you pronounce that, Bob Budiansky.
Oh, okay.
And if you haven't talked to Bob, you should. So Bob was fantastic as far as sourcing artists, thinking in terms of what would make it interesting to the comic collector. So between Alan and Bob, I didn't pick Joe Jusko. Joe at that time, I believe, was a cover artist.
Yeah.
He did the covers. And Bob, when we talked about masterpieces, doing a print, so we're moving to the next thing, but it was like, so Marvel Universe cards, in 3 series from 1, 2 to 3, there's a quantum leap in the quality of the cards, the finish, the quality of the artwork, the backs are more interesting.
Yeah.
We did a lot with Universe cards. With X-Men getting Jim Lee, that wasn't us. That was Bob and Alan saying, if we're going to get a guy to draw X-Men, let's get the guy to draw X-Men.
Genius.
Which would make it interesting for a casual collector because they're gorgeous.
Yep.
But for a comic book collector, it's something they would like to have as well. And so then going into masterpieces, Joe is just, and there are many of them. There's Boris and Julie. There's the Hildebrandt brothers. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot that you could do, but the idea initially was a pure set done by an artist, right? And the thing that I heard in a previous podcast that you all did was the conversation about the advertisement. Was a great artist puts his soul into his work.
Yeah.
And Ian rightly made the observation, Joe Jusko's name isn't anywhere on here. And there was a perfectly good reason for that, which is that Joe wasn't sure he could finish the whole set, and we might have had to bring in a pinch hitter at the end.
Wow.
And so we couldn't at that point say it's an all Joe Jusko set. Now he was a superhero himself that's it. Well, there you go. Gosh, this is like a stroll down memory lane for me. So what I'm looking at is the original ad with Mephisto, Wolverine, and Red Skull.
That's it.
And and then we got Psylocke and Spider-Man and Hulk at the bottom. Great artist puts his soul into his work. And what we were featuring was the quality of the artwork itself. Now with the Masterpiece series, we really pulled out all the stops because we knew that we had something gorgeous and special, and they were super expensive to produce because they've got that very thick, glossy laser finish on them.
Yeah.
They were. That was a special set. And we decided to number them. And if my numbers are right, I think we did 35,000 10-count cases. So there were 350,000 number boxes, which sounds like a ton. But you have to keep in mind, for you as collectors, at that time, the demand was so high for cards that trying to sort of guesstimate what the right number for production was impossible. So the difference between underproducing and overproducing was one case. You do one too few and everybody's screaming and yelling, and you do one too many and everybody says you overdid it.
Yeah.
But again, what's so super cool about these early sets is they're in the hobby, they've become sort of legendary, and that's what we were intending. at the time, we didn't know it was going to be like 30 years later, people would be.
Well, you freaking nailed it, just so you know.
Yeah, totally. So you're very kind for saying so. So I have a couple of little treats here.
Oh my goodness. Here we go.
And I don't know if
okay. I'm going to behave.
This stuff. This is super cool.
I'm going to keep my cool.
So I actually have a collection because I was the marketing guy. I wasn't, necessarily the art procurement guy. So this is Previews magazine.
Yeah.
So you've seen the promo cards, right? The Marvel Masterpiece.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And have you seen? So this was it was glued into the Previews magazine.
Oh my God, Ian, stop sharing your screen.
Full page.
I have. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
There we go.
So this was in Previews magazine, spinning a web of trading card excitement. Wow. So this series was not only for the mass market, but also very much for the hobby market. Marvel Age magazine did
my boy Ian sent me that.
Okay, wow. So that's Comics Buyer's Guide, Price Guide.
You've got that.
I got that one.
You do.
Oh my gosh!
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I thought I was going to show you some.
No, you are. You are.
Is the Wolverine one going to be in here? The tough Canadian one.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then this is where it gets really interesting. So you've seen all that. Do you?
There's two more.
Non-sport update.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this? I know there are two more, which. Again, I was going through boxes of stuff, so I know I have all of them, but these are the ones I was able to put my hands on. What's cool about this non-sport update is they featured Wolverine on the cover.
That's right.
But this reminded me, I wasn't just doing Marvel cards at the time. I was doing a lot of entertainment cards. Mm-hmm. And the tip in the middle of this one was Garfield collector cards.
Oh.
I actually did the Garfield set, and then we also had heavy metal cards. These are mega metal cards. Isn't that crazy? Cool. Yeah, it was super cool. And the reason that I bring up the Garfield cards is we were working with Jim Davis at his studio, which was in Muncie, Indiana. And we went out there for a meeting to collect the set. And he had a couple of guys working in his studio at that point. There was a guy by the name of Gary Barker. And Gary was Gary was just an artist who drew Garfield stuff and cartoons, and but he was a huge comic fan. So we're sitting at this big table in this Jim's studio, which was a big operation at that time. All that for a cat, right?
I love it.
And Gary's sitting there kind of absent because he's an artist. He's just sketching and doing his thing. And at the end of the thing, I realized he's drawn Garfield as Cable.
What?
Just with a pencil. He pencil arted, and Odie as Magneto. And he finishes the meeting, and he's just got like his notes and these things. And I'm like, hey, dude.
No.
That is the most awesome thing I've ever seen. He's like, do you want them? I said, yeah, I want them. Yeah, so I took them home, and I sprayed them with a fixative and framed them. Oh. And my son, who I mentioned earlier, still has them in these beautiful frames. They're the coolest things because it's Garfield and Odie. But the cool part about it is he's just sitting in the meeting, kind of like thinking his thoughts, looking out the window. He wasn't even looking.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is the coolest thing ever. Are you kidding? That's amazing.
It was really cool. Yeah.
Garfield is Cable. That's so perfect in this amazing way. And Odie is, oh wow. I actually really love that.
That's such a mashup.
Genius. That's absolutely perfect.
That was a lot of. Yeah. So which ones was I missing, Ian?
Psylocke.
Yeah.
I think. And
what was she in?
I don't know. There's a post.
Oh, come on, guys.
There's a guy in the group called Matt Lenefelt.
Captain America would be the other one.
That's it. Yes. Who is really into his 1992. So he'll definitely be all over this. He is tracking down.
Yeah. Are you sure that all 6 were distributed?
Yeah.
I feel like they were.
They were
because we've seen examples and pictures of this, especially on Jeff's list.
He has them all. No, he has them all. That's what I'm trying to say. He's put a post up in Marvel Masterpieces Collectors where he has shown us all 6 of them, and he owns them. The other interesting thing that he's doing, Ken, is that we know that there's a Dynamic Forces release of Masterpieces 92 where there's a single card in each that Joe signed.
So
what he's doing,
like 5,000 or something like that.
So but it's just the one card that's signed, but it comes with a little Dynamic Forces.
So would you believe? So those are the promo cards, the 6 promos.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there were 6 promos, and then there were 3 prototypes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got the 3 prototypes were in the little shrink wrap pack. What's kind of annoying to me is I was with Joe at a couple of comic shows, and I never got him to sign these. He never offered. I never asked him, and yeah. Well, we were just kind of buddies, so. Isn't that interesting?
That's interesting. Well, let me ask you a question, because you actually could solve one of the greater mysteries in our hobby right now.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, if you can, it might not happen. So there's been speculation about printing plates for the 1992 Marvel Masterpiece cards,
or most 90s sets, but yes,
or post 90 sets. Yeah, because I actually found a hologram printing plate for the set of holograms from the 1990 for Marvel Universe. Like, they were on a printing sheet and they were holograms and how they used to laser them and all that kind of cool stuff. Would there be a printing plate for the 1992 Marvel Masterpiece cards? Is that how that would work? Because I don't know. I don't know how the sheets would work. Would it just be on an uncut sheet, or were there actual metal plates for that?
I'm sure there were. And I don't know what would have happened to them. The only things I have were, we went to the printing. We would sign off on the printing proofs.
Wow.
What became of those? And then generally when it was done, we would get a proof. And for really memorable sets like Marvel Masterpieces, as a gift, because that one we felt like we kicked butt. Everybody who was involved in that team got a beautifully framed press sheet. Wow. It was a 2-sided framed. It was glass on both sides, so you could see the fronts and the backs, which was, look at that.
Here we go. So this is the post, Yeah.
That's right.
Up and coming comic scoreboard had Captain America, previews which we saw had Spider-Man. Then you've got the Comic Buyer's Guide. Wizard 13 had Psylocke, and then of course Marvel Age. So we'll pop pictures of all these on the tasting notes, courtesy of Matt. So thank you, Matt, for posting those in the group.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, he is. He's big into his masterpieces.
He knows some stuff, doesn't he?
He's the Marvel Masterpieces mage of our group. So I think that's probably the best way to.
And since we're talking masterpieces, let me see. I have a couple of other interesting little curiosities here.
Oh my God!
Sorry to go out of sight. But have you all seen? So that was the original.
Oh, the posters.
The hobby store poster coming this fall.
I love that thing.
Right? But please note, Ian, down in the corner there, artwork by Joe Jusko.
Yeah.
So by that point, we knew he had got it. So that's really cool.
Oh.
Holy crap, that's amazing.
I had totally forgotten that I had that. So there's the Spectra sheet.
Oh, the Spectra sheet.
That's a printer's proof of the Spectra sheets, which is cool. And then this press sheet was this is a favorite. It's just spectacular. I love this. Both the fronts and the backs. This was.
There's mine.
You got it.
I need to get it framed.
All right, fine. Okay, I got it.
Look at that. That's amazing, Ken.
It's just incredible.
I love Love that. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. That's so cool.
You know what? I'm going to roll out here for Ken. So Ken.
Oh, this is crazy, Ken.
So Joe, bless him. Good evening, sir. We always say that to Joe whenever, because I don't know if he listens, but
we don't know. But
I like to hope that he does. I can't actually find the certificate of authenticity. So Joe, about a year and change ago,
wow, that
was. I think he was doing some work at his house, and he found, still in the original brown manila envelopes, which are quite big, obviously, 10 of these, which are uncut sheets of the 4 of the promos. So you've got Hulk, Wolverine, Spidey, and Captain America.
Why only 4?
I don't know. That's just where it ended.
Yeah.
But there is a certificate of authenticity with it.
Here, hold it up more.
Back?
Well, I'm going
to the back.
Hang on. There's more to it.
Oh yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
What he did
is your show. I've got to.
No, that's quite all right. It's just
this is fascinating.
I'm leading up to the reveal. You very can't. And people who listen to the podcast are sick of me showing this on the episode, but I'm going to share it again because I don't care. And he solved the 10 of them in the group, and then as an extra, and he didn't say he was going to do this. He drew a little remark on the bottom.
Sweet.
For each person who bought one. He didn't say he was going to do that. He didn't charge any extra for it. And he did Black Cat, which is my character. But yeah, on the back, it's prototypes, actually.
Those are the prototypes.
Yeah. 3 prototypes and one of the promos.
Oh, yeah.
And they do come with a certificate of authenticity that is numbered, I believe. So, yeah. Well, beautiful. So I'll be on frame at some stage.
I gotta say, can I just say this, Joe? I hope you are listening, and I won't tell any bad stories about you, Joe. No, he's there's nothing to tell. He's legitly, just the nicest guy. But I've seen a lot of beautiful card art. It really doesn't get any better than that. Mm-hmm. That stuff, when his work started coming in, we were all just like astonished. It's gorgeous.
It really is.
Wow. Yeah. So that's interesting. You say when his stuff started coming in. So is it? Did the actual pieces come in? Because obviously it's back in the day. You can't scan them. Obviously, you didn't fax them because that would have been great. No. So how do the actual original art pieces come into where you work, or did you just see photographs?
I think originally, and if memory serves, again, I wasn't the production guy.
Yeah, no.
That was Rick Haynes. Rick should get a mention on this because Rick was he was great. I believe the stuff went from Joe to Bob Budiansky at Marvel. Mm-hmm. Bob would go through the stuff, and then they would group it and send us groups that we could then do, the scanning and production on. But Bob, I'm sure Bob laid hands on. Well, he was really the sort of executive creative director on that stuff, and But I do remember he was like, "Oh, you guys, you're not going to believe this."
Wow.
And so when at the end there, it was looking like, Joe was going to finish the 100 card set, but he might not be able to do the art for the Spectra cards. We're like, come on, man, you got to do this. Yeah. And so he dug deep. That was spectacular.
I love how there was a team of people rooting for him as he was going to do the Battle Spectra.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is that some sort of dance, Norrin? The way you did
like it? It's really cool.
It's like some sort of weird, funky move from back in the day.
By the way.
One of the things I find fascinating, because obviously you were on the marketing side, is how you put these out in an era that wasn't internet capable. You had fanzines, you had magazines like Wizard, you had previews, but a lot of it was print and show based. Right. So it's how you actually promoted them. And one thing that's telling for me is when I look at Marvel Universe 90, 93, which is Series 3, and the Masterpieces, is the number of different unique. So for example, Marvel Universe 90, there's a number of 4-card panels.
Yeah.
And they were different depending on where they went. So was that kind of you plugging into the existing distribution network that the comics had? Because I don't remember Yeah, I just find it fascinating that, it's like, there's all these different channels. Let's just do a unique piece for each. Was that a conscious decision that was taken to do that?
Very much so. So what you keep in mind where I started the story, and I said I was going to loop back around.
Yeah.
So we had a sales force who were distributing where cigarettes were distributed, which is convenience stores, mass marketers. The hobby universe was something completely new to us. And initially, there wasn't a lot of interest. Like think about it. You're a C-store guy. You're going to put something at the point of purchase, by the cash register or behind the cash register. Like the hobby guys are coming from, they had done a little bit, dipped their toe in the water with selling cards, but there wasn't a huge high demand for cards. They were selling comic books and stuff like that. And so we were coming in at the same time trying to give each of the categories something that was unique and interesting to them. So if you look back at that time, and I found a couple of examples of this, there were like some mass marketers like Walmart, or it may not have been Walmart at that time, but there were mass marketers or Kmart we were trying to get in, where we did these big blister pack things.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are these big that you could see go into rack displays.
Yeah.
Right. So they weren't those beautiful little boxes. We actually had to do these flat rackable displays.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to get stuff into as many outlets as we could. And then, it didn't take very long for it to kind of catch fire. And we knew we had something, with particularly the Marvel cards.
Yeah.
Wow. And you had a whole hobby industry, and I think somewhere along the line it was striking the right balance between the hobby industry saying, hey, you did this special tip-in card, for Kmart, and they don't even support the hobby. So what's going on? Yeah. So there was a lot of negotiation. There was a lot of purposeful. We didn't concern ourselves that much with the aftermarket. But then we started to see this stuff, like when you go to Comic Cons and it's like, hey, where'd you get that press sheet? Hey, how'd you get a whole set of it was like, yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I think at that time, once it became popular, like there's a very short list of people who deserve to have a frame press sheet because they worked on the thing at the time. It was their product. Yeah. And you guys have been supporting the hobby, and that's groovy. It's all good. But there was definitely a time like in the mid 90s, because I think what was happening is probably the people who were printing them were like, hey, I'm going to put a stack of these aside and I'll sell them to my buddy who can sell them at a comic show. Yeah, there was a little bit of that. So if you actually look at some of the press sheets from the mid to late 90s, there's actually a theft statement on them.
Whoa.
And selling a whole press sheet amounts to theft. It was kind of like, with the videos, piracy is not a victimless crime.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting, though.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if they're more of like a commemorative type of thing, right? If they're really there to kind of announce the success and the completion and a memory and a token, a memento type of thing. Yeah, I can definitely see that being, I don't know, that has to kind of hurt. I can totally understand that 100%.
Yeah. But I think my thing was, if we can push out 35,000 cases of cards, like for masterpieces, and people love it, and it's making its way out, do I really care what happens in the aftermarket? We're on to the next thing, right?
Right. And also, too, yeah, you really are next onto the next thing, literally, right? I mean, I'm assuming by the time that stuff is printed and distributed, you're working on the next set, I'm guessing?
Precisely. So we lived, are you guys familiar with Gantt charts?
Yes.
Gantt. Yeah. So a Gantt chart is this calendar with overlapping, so we would look at our product releases that, it takes about 6 months to put a card set out. So 2 months into Marvel Universe 2, we had started working with Jim Lee on X-Men, which overlapped with Masterpiece. So we had all this stuff going on, and that was just for Marvel. But for Skybox, Impel, then Skybox, and then for Fleer, we had all this other stuff. So for me personally, as a strategic business unit director, you know what that means.
Full circle.
But doing all that non-sport stuff, while the Marvel stuff is getting done, I'm flying to Muncie, Indiana to meet with Garfield. We did Archie's comic book cards. We did. I mean, if you look at like a non-sport update from that time, man, we did a lot. You know, I was also the brand manager for Star Trek. So I was flying to LA and doing all that. There was a lot going on. It wasn't like I was just, planning Marvel sets.
That's what I wanted to. What I wanted to talk about actually, because Star Trek is when I this sounds so creepy. First of all, I'm peeking at your LinkedIn profile, then I'm googling you. But
it was weird.
It is a bit weird.
Stop him, but he wouldn't listen to me. But.
Yeah. There's the real reason Joe hasn't been on. It's the restraining order. So I when I Google you, obviously there is a guy on the interweb who has quite a decent. There's Marvel variations of this, but there's a guy who's really into his Star Trek cards, and he's got a site where he has images of the cards, images of the boxes, images of the packaging, images of any press releases that came out. So he's got a number of press releases, and one of the ones I found that I really like. I'm just going to put this on the screen again because I think it's absolutely fascinating to see. Because it actually does mention you by name in this press release. I'm sure you're
look at that.
First of all, I love the Skybox logo because great cards are hard to find. I love that. I mean, it's just really cool. So this is from we'll put this on the tasting notes because it is out there in the public domain. For immediate release, May 24th, 1995.
Yeah.
Skybox 101, putting horizontal card sets in albums. And so this is basically... not necessarily pushing a specific product, although you do mention Star Trek Voyager and Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh, good heavens! Look at that.
But you're talking about storing them, and it kind of touches on your note about the 9 card. About your kind of the way of approaching this from a collector mentality, and I absolutely love. How you go on to say here, according to Star Trek marketing manager Ken Baroff. So first of all, Star Trek marketing manager, that's what you should.
That's cool, man.
On your LinkedIn.
How about that?
Because people know that. A lot of card buyers aren't aware that when certain Star Trek card products are put together in 9-card plastic pages correctly, the card backgrounds form pictures. I love it. This is a press release and it's in and of itself.
Yeah.
So I think that's fascinating. And I found something else that kind of speaks to your I guess your passion for that kind of thing. This is his site actually.
Dear God.
Was it jklm.net? He's got a Star Trek card. So I don't know who the guy is. I found it as I was Googling. And he's got all sorts. So you'll see here, look, he's got all sorts of stuff, Star Trek cards written out.
This makes me so happy.
Yeah. No.
Super cool.
You're in there. You're recorded. It's like
you really are.
Did I say anything stupid?
It's no. Well, I don't think so.
I thought in that statement that you just read, because you didn't go down to the next paragraph where it says it is imperative that you put them. Imperative is kind of a strong word. Isn't
Here we go. Yeah.
I said it's imperative that you put the sheets together the right way.
Amen, brother.
Is it imperative?
Yeah. But
I would agree with your statement there. I'm just going to put that out there.
Come on, man. It just increases the enjoyment.
Well,
it's not as much fun if you can't make a picture.
I'm not sure I
understand. In your summation. But the payoff.
I took myself too seriously then. Okay.
No, this is perfect. Here we go. But the payoff for, and I love this, correctly arranged 9-card subsets of Star Trek cards is great. So it's worth the effort, he said.
Yeah. And I actually said those things. Yeah. Good old George White.
Hats off to you. There's another lady's name that pops up on the press releases a lot. I can't remember off the top of my head. They did a lot of the later ones actually. But there's reference here and this fascinates me, and the very short paragraph just speaks to things. Starfleet collection card set. So in 1993, Skybox made a set of 6 cards with images from the original series movies, and this was a box set of 6 letterbox videotapes that was limited to 5,000. So back in the day, and I remember this because I had a wall of VHS tapes, and then I gradually moved to DVD, and I'm kind of somewhere in between now. I'm a sucker for old digital formats, by the way, as we've talked about on previous episodes. I've got a whole case of HD DVDs over there, which was the format lost out to Blu-ray. But anyway, I digress. Where marketing of VHSs became a thing when they started releasing widescreen versions of them, and that was actually a marketing thing. It's like, how can we sell this product again to someone? I know, we'll release a widescreen version of it, and for a whole period of time you'd be able to buy a regular, because the TVs, don't forget, couldn't do it. They were 4x3, and it wasn't until the late 90s you started getting those beastly televisions that were about 6 foot deep that were actually widescreen format. But here we go. So there were 3 regular and 3 holographic cards in this Starfleet collection of VHS sets. The hologram cards are the best ones to date. Ken Baroff, that's you, reports Paramount spent extra money to get the best quality, something not as practical as normal card sets. And the cards were found in this set. Comes in a black plastic box that opens with a key. This set retailed for $200 in 1993.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
That's so thinking? Cool.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, right? I'll true confession, and then I'll be honest. The true confession is, in order to get to my Marvel stuff, I went through the Star Trek stuff as well. We've actually got it pretty in this closet that I was talking, my closet of wonders. And I spent as much time and care doing the Star Trek stuff, and we did a lot. So 94, 95, 96.
Yes.
Because there were so many properties, but we kind of put the Marvel treatment to it, which was, we did original series, we did Next Generation, we did Voyager, we did Deep Space Nine. It was, and the thing, that is so cool. And with Star Trek, we had the coolest thing, and it wasn't part of this series. We had a motion card. Have you ever seen the Sky motion cards? Those are super cool. Yeah, yes. It's like an animation, a little flip card with animation, super cool. And where was I going with this? But I think the thing that's interesting to me is the level of creativity, right? Yeah. And it wasn't just me. I mean, we had a team of people that were working on that stuff. Marvel was a team of people. Star Trek, I started with that just because it was slightly more recent. And Star Trek had a very similar kind of passionate fan following.
Yeah, right.
To Marvel, and that was, I think, what we did a really good job with was designing from what would be amazing to the collector, to somebody who's really into the property, like what. So that release, which Ian, you got me on that one, because I remembered it when I saw it. It's like living someone else's life. It's so weird. And but that was something, I probably was at a Star Trek show, and people were displaying these, and I went to our PR guy, which was George White, and said, we need to make sure people know that if you put these the right way in the freaking 9-up sheet, it's good. We designed these. We didn't design these so you're going to put them in backwards, for God's sake.
Right.
And by that point, because it was 3 years later, and I had won the Battle of the X-Men, where I had those beautiful 9-up sheets that made Norrin so happy.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, right? That was like, X-Men Series 2 was like a perfect set. I think Masterpieces was perfect. Those were just as good as they could be. But the Star Trek sets, we did some really creative, interesting stuff, pushing technology, using the shiny holographic materials. We did a lot of stuff that I'm really, really proud of.
Wow.
When you guys have given me license to look back on it and remember it, and again, doing the research, which I had to do, doing a little bit of my own Googling, and it's like, wow, there's all these people who are like 30 somethings or,
that's generous.
Yeah. Well, whatever, 30 somethings, 40 somethings, but grew up with this stuff. It did exactly what it was intended to do.
Well, I was going to say earlier, like you mentioned about how these cards were a gateway into comic books and gateway into understanding these characters. I am a product of that. I didn't grow up on the comic books. I grew up on the cards, which got me into the comic books. Like I remember me and my friend in our neighborhood gathering around looking at our cards, as hokey as this is, and reading the power meters and remembering like what our characters' powers were and like coming up with all these scenarios, reading their backstories, all this really fun stuff. And that was a lot of my childhood was those cards. I still have my very first Silver Surfer card that I ever collected. And it was because of the way they were designed, laid out, what your team did, and what you so kindly spend your time doing and, perfecting and working so hard doing really affected a lot of us. I mean, it's not just me, definitely. Yeah.
Well, you're very kind for saying that. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. When Ian first reached out, I was like deeply gratified, but also a little bit nervous because it's like, it's so interesting going through this stuff and the kinds of questions you guys are asking and your reactions to what I'm talking about. I'm like, who would care about this kind of thing? But it really was an interesting time. It was it really kind of was that much fun for, an idiot just a few years out of college. I'm talking about myself, not the other people. And I was like, I got to work on this super cool stuff. Yeah. And at the time, we took it seriously.
You can tell.
We took what we were doing seriously, and we put a lot of care into the quality of what we were doing. We could not have imagined that, in 2020, like if you were to talk to me in 1992 and say, looking ahead, a fortune teller told me in 2020, you're going to be on a podcast. What the heck is a podcast? With guys talking about what you're doing right now. I couldn't have believed it.
No, it's absolutely, that's the thing. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable in any way, but the work that you and your colleagues, and not to mention the artists, of course, and I know the guys at Marvel were massively, the kind of art directors, I guess, in terms of, the direction that things were going in. But the work collectively that you put out professionally, that you were paid to do, regardless of your level of personal interest in it, and your personal, interest and care and attention is the fingerprints are all over it, which is why I raised those press releases. It has influenced so much about how the sets are made now, how the sets are marketed now, how revered the original ones are. There are people now, just now, and I guarantee that this will be the case. Someone will hear this podcast who has never seen any of these sets, and someone will go and seek them out, and they were produced. You mentioned a staggering number of Marvel Masterpieces 92. It's a really affordable way to earn deeply, deeply high quality art and trading cards and something fun. And it doesn't take up too much space in your home. No. So
we have guys in the group who and women in the group who are doing this with their kids and getting into the sets. Yeah. Like we have people who come on the group like, listen, I love these cards back in the day. I never held on to them. I have some cash now to enjoy them fully. What should I buy? And it's always your sets, right? It's the milestone golden age of trading cards that comes up. Yeah. And that's what people are able to dive into. A lot of things have changed. Not really. The foundation that your team and you built is the foundation that all these new Marvel cards are on, right? They're right now more for the premium collector. They're not really as widespread, which is a little sad because then you don't really get a chance for a lot of the younger audience to kind of break into this, right? It's a lot of us who have kids and all this other stuff that can share, but yeah, you are the foundation, which is insane to say. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
As long as then, thank you, because
seriously,
sharing this time with us.
Thank you.
For sharing your memories about it. Because I recently got this, and it makes me happy because this is the last thing I'm going to show you. I promise. This makes me happy, and
rock and roll,
what
man.
we've said, I know this will have your fingerprints all over it. This is the Star Trek: The Next Generation. 39 collector cards behind the scenes. Now, behind the scenes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, to me at that age, was infuriatingly irresistible. This is number 20,509 of 50,000. So that there's a lot of these out there, and I have broken the hinge is broken. These are beautiful.
It's ruined.
These are beautiful.
See, Ken gets it. Ken gets it.
You've ruined it.
It's already broken when I acquired it. To be fair, but I'm torn because there are 39 of them, so it won't 9-page. Yeah. It's short of 45, which would be 5. I can't do my 9 times table. 5 sleeves, which is so it'd be 4.5 sleeves. So I've actually chosen to leave them in here.
Yeah, which is what they were intended to be.
It's to be in that container.
It came to you in that little plastic box.
This little plastic box has survived pretty well. I mean, there's 50,000 of them out there, but it's gorgeous. But the level of access you would have had to stuff that wouldn't have been in the public domain. Obviously, you were working under NDA. I had a similar thing because I used to work in West End theatre. So, we'd have access to a lot of stuff that wasn't out there and, hot on sales and things like that. And I work on licensed properties now. So, it is giddy, quite frankly, to be able to be in that, but then also to be able to see the impact it has on other people.
Yeah. So what's really cool about that, since we started off with my long-suffering wife, I was actually at the wrap party for The Next Generation. They had this big party on the Paramount lot, like this huge deal. Yeah, I was like, it's cool.
That would have been.
It would have been 1994. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm at the party and I'm peripheral because I'm just a licensee, and meet the people I'm needing to meet. And I'd worked with all the the actors and stuff, so I knew them. And I'm sitting at a table with a pregnant woman. And we're having this whole conversation, and I get into this, and it's just a lovely, lovely lady. And at the end of the night, her husband comes and gets her, who it turns out is Jonathan Frakes, who's okay. Yes. So then I said, this is so I'm talking to my wife.
You were talking to Jeannie Francis.
Correct.
Wow.
You're a step ahead of me.
Sorry, I've ruined the story.
So anyway, you haven't ruined anything. Wow. So I called my wife the next day, and I'm like, I had the nicest time. I was talking to Jonathan Frakes' wife, and I guess she's an actress too. And so my wife's like, so who? She didn't know the connection. I said, Jeannie somebody? She's like, Jeannie Francis, you moron. Like, yeah, she was pregnant. She's like, yes, she's pregnant. Yeah. She's doing. I said, so how do you know all this stuff? She's like, how do you not know this, you idiot? It's like, okay. No, she was super.
That's amazing.
Those guys were great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But those are the kinds of stories to be able to tell, to be on, going onto those sets and getting your picture taken, like on the bridge of the Enterprise or at
please
the
tell me you've got
station
some of those.
At Deep Space Nine. Of course I do. But that's not the point of this podcast. And
we cross over.
We just changed it. I've changed the name of the podcast. We're going.
In my wait a minute. Let's just wait a minute. Actually,
I want everybody to know.
Last thing, because I have to.
Last thing, yes.
Guys, this is the longest podcast you've ever. Why there's.
More than happy with that.
So there's. No, this isn't what it was supposed to. Wait a minute. Let's get to the camera.
That's it.
So there's her Garfield at a comic show. That was Jim Davis, who's the Garfield artist. I have lots of pictures with Marvel superheroes, but we'll pass on those right now. A lot. There's a picture of me with the Swamp Thing. This was in my short time at Fleer. That was in late '93, so that's with Wolverine.
That's so cool.
Oh, that's wonderful.
At a comic show, yeah. But I'm getting there's a really cool one in here. Here it is. I love this. So this is.
Oh, it's in a Star Trek branded envelope.
No.
Oh,
no.
So what was May 19th, 1994? Is that what
that's the broadcast date of the final episode, I believe.
Then there it is.
Damn,
so this
Ian,
was
good work.
So as part of the party, well, I just happened to I have my keepsakes, but is that not cool? So I guess I was at a station there. I've also got a picture on Deep Space Nine, and
I'm gonna say something. You definitely could be wearing the uniform. You play the role, my friend. It looks good.
with the mullet and
I love it.
Crazy hair and
Wow.
Simpson. Yeah,
That's just so cool, man.
crazy, right? Here's the Fantastic Four.
Oh,
Yes.
that's brilliant.
Right?
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, it was look, and then going into nonprofit work. I would say this was an amazingly, fun, enjoyable, creative time in my professional career. I'm so glad I got to be a part of it. I'm so glad you guys gave me a chance. I should thank you for getting a chance to relive it a little bit.
We are so grateful that you're
So
here,
much
man,
fun.
sharing this.
So much fun. Ugh.
Right. Well, at that point,
okay,
now
that's
that we've seen Ken on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise,
Who would have thought this is where the show would have gone?
On a Marvel card.
I was kind of, you know what? Hey, Marvel have done Star Trek comics, so it's all good.
Yeah, very good.
I think we've kind of peaked at that point. So I think.
What else can we say?
Without further ado, Ken, you know how we end our podcasts with our enjoy collecting sign off. So would you be so kind as to boldly go and lead us out of this episode?
This is Ken Baroff, formerly of Skybox, and for all of you out there in Marvel Cardland, enjoy collecting.
Thanks for listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast. Visuals and tasting notes for each episode can be found on our Facebook page. You can subscribe and leave us a voicemail via our home on anchor.fm/MCCP. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Please take a second to subscribe, like, and review our show wherever you get your podcasts. Our podcast can be found by Googling @the MCC Pod, which will also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Our Facebook community is at MCCW, Marvel Card Collectors Worldwide, and MMC, Marvel Masterpieces Collectors. The great music we use is called Rocket Power by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks to the collectors, artists, and creators who support the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. We'll see you next time, and remember, it's a small hobby but a fun one. Make mine Marvel and enjoy collecting.